And joining us now to discuss this is Bart Marcois, former presidential campaign policy advisor and president of Marcois Partners International Corporation. And we have Javier Palomarez, founder and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Business Council and former Obama campaign advisor. So first of all, good afternoon to you both. It's great to have you here. Bart, I'll start with you today. Can you talk to us about where this pushback is coming from? Why do you think people felt this way over the logo?
Hi, Don. Good afternoon. And hi, Javier. Good to see you again.
Hey,
The
Bart, how are you?
pushback came from Cracker Barrel's. Fine, thanks. Fine. Pushback came from Cracker Barrel's customers. People go there looking for the Cracker Barrel experience. They wanted to see Uncle Heschel sitting there on the Cracker Barrel, and they wanted the homey atmosphere of the store. You go in and you feel like you're in a country store. They had truly handmade uh, instruments and toys and tchotchkes there from local artisans. It was a real, experience. And when they changed the logo, they were also redesigning the restaurants, and it looked like you were walking into a Denny's. It looked no different from any other, coffee shop restaurant. It destroyed the soul of what Cracker Barrel represented. And there was absolutely no reason for it. It's a great logo, very recognizable, and you see it and you feel good and you think, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll go there and I'll get a great big serving of meatloaf and mashed potatoes.
So Javier, what do you think? Where is the core backlash or criticism coming from?
I completely agree with Bart. This logo, this was the brand, if you will, and people went in for that experience. Messing with the corporate logo, with the ethos of a company, with a tagline, it's always been a very, very tricky thing to do. It's not an advisable thing to do, particularly if you've got a 50-some year history, as Cracker Barrel did have. And to Bart's point, Uncle Herschel was part and parcel of that experience and that brand. And so I think that what happened here is that the core customer set in the South felt a bit as though the brand had left them, as though the organization, the company, was trying to become something other than what that customer base had made it, which was a very successful restaurant brand. And so I think when that began to happen, you saw consumers and customers, some of them that had been customers for decades, felt betrayed. And we saw that in a plummeting, say, 12% plummeted in the shares. And then when they quickly reverted back to the old logo, I've heard that shares jumped back by about 9%. And so there's obviously a correlation here and a lesson's been learned. I think Cracker Barrel will think very long and hard about ever messing with their brand again or ever taking Uncle Herschel and that barrel outside the logo.
So Bart, Javier mentioned perhaps there's lessons to be learned here. What would you say those lessons are?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, it's the same lesson that Bud Light had to learn, and I don't know if Bud Light will ever come back. They could put Sydney Sweeney on as a brand seller, salesperson, and I don't think they would recover. You don't mess with your market. You don't change the entire nature of your branding to just to satisfy some whim. And I suspect another lesson learned is boards are going to look very closely at CEOs and at the entire executive suite. I'm not sure that this CEO will survive this. She went on, I don't know, I think it was ABC News, and was defending the change, and she she was clearly lying. She kept saying, everybody loves this. There are no complaints. Everything is fine. People are lining up to, the franchisees are lining up to get the new look. And that simply wasn't true. And when a CEO starts lying in public about one thing, they wonder, well, what else is she lying about? And they wonder what else is going on at the corporation. And there are lots of really strong voices on social media talking about wokeness and DEI at corporate headquarters of Cracker Barrel, and they're saying, well, what made them think that this was a good idea? And is there an echo chamber there with nobody really representing the consumer in the C-suite or in the boardroom?
So Javier, Bart is talking about the consumer at the end part there, and can you comment on that as well as what are the lessons learned here?
Well, I think it's a time honored challenge. Every brand, tries to look at themselves, the corporation, the ethos of the company, and in an attempt to modernize, to remain relevant, to stay top of mind. Oftentimes, they will do something like this, but it is a gamble at best. I would recommend that any corporation attempting to do something like this, first and foremost, reach out to your customer base, do a lot of research, do a lot of focus groups with the people who brought you there, with that consumer that purchased your product over time. It's important to make the customer the real decision maker when you do something of this sort. It is a huge gamble. People do take their brands very, very personally, and particularly a brand like this one that was so it was an icon in the South, and people associated good events like Sunday after church, birthdays, anniversaries. This was a place where people gathered, continue to gather. But I think when the brand attempted to change, people got a sense that that brand was abandoning them, and they in turn abandoned the brand. So a lesson was learned, and if there's anything that you can garner from this experience, is that a brand means a lot, and more so today than it ever has. Brands are important to people who are taking their hard-earned money at a time when it is difficult, frankly, to go out and enjoy a meal. And so if you take part of that experience away from them, they're likely to look elsewhere. And you can ill afford it as a brand. And I think, again, the lesson was learned by the Cracker Barrel people. I can't speak to the CEO or her truthfulness, but clearly the message was sent, and it was well received, I think.
You know, Bart, what's notable in this situation with Cracker Barrel is that it actually reversed course and changed its new logo back to its old logo, right? And continue on your point earlier, you're talking about the consumer. Can you speak to the effect of consumer backlash?
Sure. So what happened here, imagine you're a first baseman and a ball goes just a little bit out of your reach and you run over to catch it. And while you're trying to catch that ball, the runner goes and is safe on the base. You don't take your foot off the base. Cracker Barrel took their foot off the base. They were reaching so far for that new market that they took their foot off the base and they lost the play. They were wise enough to change course immediately, and I think that has a political lesson for the political world. Um, it, it shows that we are past the tipping point. We're past the turning point where wokeness is going to be considered a risk factor for investors and even for the big hedge funds, many of which were driving what was it they called it, ESG agenda, a sort of a woke leftist kind of agenda. They're now saying, whoa, 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 we have to, that's too far. People don't like it, and we'll lose our money if we bet on that. And you're seeing it. There's a political race right now in Virginia. It's a special election. A guy named Stuart Whitson is running for Congress to fill the seat vacated by a congressman who died. He is sticking with a very strong message that appeals to families, to working families, what have you. He's not taking his foot off the base. He's keeping it on there, and I think you're going to see more and more of that in political campaigns.
You know, Bart, you mentioned that there's this woke aspect of the situation involving Cracker Barrel. What I find interesting is that it seems like people from the left and right are criticizing this new logo change. For example, Governor Newsom from California actually took credit for Cracker Barrel changing back its logo. So I'm wondering, Bart, just quickly, and then I'll have Javier react here. Do you think this reversal could maybe strengthen Cracker Barrel in the long term? Does it at all show that it cares about its customers and that it's listening?
You bet it does, but it shows more about the zeitgeist of the country. When even Gavin Newsom jumps on this wagon, you know that he realizes this is going over the top of the hill, and he wants to jump on and take credit for having put it there. I would love to meet whoever it is that's running his social media campaign. It's like they read everything Donald Trump posts on X or on Truth Social, and then they come up with a Gavin Newsom style comment to it. I don't think it's going to work for him, but I find it highly amusing. But yeah, this is definitely going to save Cracker Barrel if they continue being the same company that they have been for 50 years. It will end up being a boost for them. They'll get more. This will get them new customers. The fact that they were in the news and then they went back to the old ways. I think people will say, well, what is Cracker Barrel anyway? People who've never been there. Once they go in, they're going to say, you know, good menu, a lot of food, nice place, great when you're traveling, nice place.
Okay, Javier, what are you thinking?
I couldn't agree more with Bart. As it relates to Cracker Barrel, this is a brand that is in 45 states, but it is uniquely kind of a Southern experience, and it is an experience. It's not just a restaurant. The country store element, the furniture, the obviously the menu, everything about it is a down home kind of feeling, and I think a lesson has been learned. I think consumers will react. I think positively. The existing customer base, Bart referred to it as not taking your foot off the base, and that's exactly what Cracker Barrel did accidentally, but they reacted immediately, and I think it will cause people who perhaps weren't customers to maybe explore a Cracker Barrel, and the point that was made about kind of DC and corporate America are independent of each other, but today more so than ever before, they're taking cues from each other. If you look at it, DC is fostering a very pro-America, kind of pro-worker sentiment. That's the ethos coming out of this administration in Washington, D.C. And already you're seeing brands lining up and beginning to speak to that ideology. The Ford Committed to America ad campaign comes to mind, where they're talking about what they're doing, how much they sell to Americans, how they employ Americans, how they're a uniquely American brand that's been around for over 100 years, and talking about that pro-America perspective. You're going to see more and more of that happening with all the brands across the board, because everybody wants to get in line with an administration that frankly has made it their business to get into the business world and begin to kind of flex its muscle and let corporate America know that we're watching and we will take action and we'll do what we think is necessary to continue this pro-America sentiment and perspective.
Okay, I'll give one more reaction from each of you, and this is in relation to President Trump even commenting and congratulating Cracker Barrel on the reversal, and he tweeted out a meme, I believe, showing himself leaning on an oil barrel, which is a play on the Cracker Barrel logo, and then we can show that in a bit, and then Javier, I'll have you react to that first, and then Bart gets the last word.
I think Donald Trump is a master at grabbing the moment, and you're absolutely right. When was the last time that an American president weighed in on something of this sort? But this is part and parcel of who Donald Trump is. He was a salesman. He was a businessman long before he became president of the United States. So for him to go there is not surprising to anyone, I don't think. I think it's a little humorous, but it does send a message. He is watching, and he will take a position. And I think that in and of itself makes it a very exceptional moment. I expect more of this to come from Donald Trump and from this administration, frankly.
Okay, Bart, you see the logo or the meme rather on your screen. Final thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it a few days ago. It's pure Trump, and Javier is right. We're going to see more of this. Margaret Thatcher famously said, "First you win the argument, then you win the election." And Andrew Breitbart famously said, "Politics is downstream from culture." And President Trump understands both of those arguments, those ideas. He is winning the argument and he's fighting the culture battle. You cannot win an election when the American culture is all sweeping people to the left. And he is saying, hey, wait a minute. America has a tremendous history, a tremendous culture, a tremendous tradition, and we are trying to restore those traditions. And everything he's doing, from fighting crime, and not just crime, but litter in Washington, D.C., to make the capital city someplace that you can be proud of, to fighting crime in other cities, to restoring pride in America as we move to the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence next year. Everything he's doing is focused on restoring American tradition and the faith and pride that Americans feel in our country. And after that, the right people will win the election if they believe in the strength and pride of America. Whether they're Republicans or Democrats, if they believe in the strength and pride of America, they will be the right ones to win the election.
Well, all right, gentlemen, I think we can leave the conversation there. It was great. Thank you very much for coming on today, Bart, Javier.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting us talk about this. It was fun.
Right.